Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tracing the absolute domino effect of how 18th century machinery didn't just change how we make things, but fundamentally birthed the major economic systems of our modern world, capitalism and socialism. It's an incredible journey from hand-woven cloth all the way to the ideological battlegrounds of the 20th and 21st centuries.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the Industrial Revolution beginning, see how machines changed the world, explore the rise of capitalism, the human cost, the birth of socialism, and finally, we'll stack capitalism and socialism right up against each other.
Part 1. The Industrial Revolution begins.
You know, when we hear the word revolution, we usually picture battles and barricades, right? But this wasn't some sudden, violent uprising. Actually, it was a massive, relatively quiet transition that kicked off in England around the mid-18th century. We're talking about a fundamental shift from handmade goods created at home by individuals to machine-made goods mass-produced in centralized factories. And within just 100 years, this quiet shift in production totally revolutionized the political, social, and economic life of humanity.
So why England, right? Well, it was kind of the perfect incubator. Post-Renaissance, you had this amazing atmosphere for scientific experimentation, mostly without heavy government interference. But a major catalyst here was the enclosure law. This law literally forced farmers to put fences around their fields, which stopped common grazing. Small farmers who couldn't afford this simply had to sell their land to larger landholders. This effectively pushed people off their land, creating this massive, ready workforce that migrated straight to growing industrial towns located near coalfields, like Manchester and Liverpool.
Part 2. Machines change the world.
We have the workforce and the locations. So what were the actual engines of all this change? Enter the spinning jenny. Invented by a Lancashire weaver named James Hargreaves, this thing was a total game changer. Before this, weaving was painstakingly slow. The spinning jenny radically sped up production by allowing a single worker to spin 8 threads at once instead of just 1. It sounds like a simple leap, but it multiplied human output exponentially.
But to really scale up, they needed heavy-duty muscle. Enter the steam engine. Visionaries quickly realized the massive economic potential of using these huge machines to literally clothe millions of people. Fun fact, from the Latin word investere, which means to clothe, we actually got the modern economic term investment, meaning the acquisition of productive assets.
It's wild to trace the step-by-step progression here, watching society restructure itself. Because these new steam engines were massive, super heavy, and way too expensive for someone's living room, the old work-from-home domestic system was completely dismantled. Production inevitably shifted into massive, centralized factories. People had to leave their villages and move to where the machines were.
Which brings us to Part 3. The rise of capitalism.
Building these giant factories took serious funding. This is where capital comes in. It was defined as the money invested to buy the machinery, the tools, and the raw materials needed to produce and sell finished goods. In capitalism, the means of production, the labor, the materials, the machines, are owned and controlled by private individuals or groups. And the driving force, the sole motive running this entire engine, was profit. Now, we absolutely have to acknowledge the massive, immediate benefits this system kicked off. This initial explosion of capitalist industry greatly increased national wealth, expanding the economy at more than twice its previous pace. It initially helped push back against the widespread poverty and the constant threat of mass starvation that had haunted the pre-industrial world. That in turn checked diseases and led to a massive population boom.
But of course, there's another side to the story. Part 4. The human cost.
This unprecedented economic growth and accumulation of capital came with a severe human cost for the newly formed working class. The contrast defining the era was just completely stark. On one side, you have the booming industrial might of the coal pits and factories, but the direct flip side, filthy, overcrowded, heavily polluted slums. People were flooding into cities way faster than housing could ever be built. The air was fouled by fossil fuels, and industrial discharge tainted the water supplies.
For the everyday worker, the reality was incredibly grim. Because of the new division of labor, folks weren't crafting things from start to finish anymore. They were doing basic, numbingly repetitive individual tasks. We're talking 12 to 14-hour workdays 6 days a week under incredibly strict rules. Safety was just not a concern, leading to awful, fatal accidents. Factory owners wanted to keep wages as absolutely low as possible, so they frequently exploited women and children to tend the machines. And at the end of these brutal shifts, families went back to shoddy tenements where multiple people often had to share a single bed.
Things got so extreme that reformers of the era literally called these new centers of industry dark, evil places. Think about that. The loss of traditional independence, the unbelievable stress of clock-ruled factory life, and the massive chasm between rich factory owners and desperately poor workers created an inevitable breaking point.
And that breaking point leads us to Part 5, the birth of socialism. To understand this, let's quickly rewind to 1776. The famous Scottish economist Adam Smith drops The Wealth of Nations. He strongly promotes a laissez-faire, or leave alone, capitalist economy. He hated state interference, believing capitalists should operate entirely freely. However, a total antithesis to this doctrine emerged, specifically because of the exploitation workers were facing under it.
And that exact antithesis was socialism. Emerging as a direct reaction to the perceived evils of capitalism, socialism proposed a system where the means of production are owned by the community or the state, rather than private individuals. The ultimate goal? To eliminate class struggle entirely between capitalists and workers, aiming for a classless society where wealth was justly distributed. Early pioneers included French thinkers like Babeuf and British figures like Robert Owen. Owen actually owned a cotton mill himself, but he reduced working hours and intentionally paid his laborers good wages.
Over time, these ideas evolved significantly. You get figures like Karl Marx and later revolutionaries like Vladimir Lenin advocating for what became known as Marxist socialism. In this vision, production shouldn't be about creating private profit at all, but strictly about satisfying human needs. The idea was that the working class would take power and organize production for its own benefit, theoretically paving the way for communism, a completely stateless system based on common ownership.
So, the stage is set. Let's head into our final section, capitalism versus socialism.
Let's look at the objective differences in their DNA. In capitalism, ownership is strictly private and the absolute core motive is profit. Making useful goods is just kind of a byproduct of chasing that profit. It relies entirely on free markets and consumer demand to figure out what gets made. Over in socialism, ownership is placed in the hands of the community or state. The motive for production is specifically how useful the goods are to meet human needs, relying on state planning rather than consumer demand. Capitalist systems champion private property across the board, while socialist systems draw a line between personal property, like your clothes or your house, and public property, like the factories themselves.
And both of these ideologies have been championed by some of the most highly influential thinkers in human history. You've got Adam Smith and Milton Friedman passionately advocating for the efficiency of free markets. And then folks like Robert Owen, Karl Marx, and even Albert Einstein arguing for the planned equity of socialism. They envisioned very, very different paths for the optimal development of human society.
It is just wild to think about, right? How the invention of a simple spinning machine in a small English home centuries ago didn't just weave cloth faster. It literally set the stage for the massive economic systems, the geopolitical conflicts, and the fierce political debates over wealth, labor, and state control that still passionately govern our world right now. When you look at today's debates over fair wages, corporate regulation, and social safety nets, ask yourself, aren't we still just trying to balance the incredible engine of the factory with the well-being of the people working inside it?